Hello there, lovely good evening and welcome to Camnet TV main news. Today, the 27th of February in the year 2025. Let's take a look at the headlines. Inflation rises to 16.8% in February. Expert calls for policy reforms to address cost of living. TIZ urges HH to provide roadmap on national matters in Parliament. And in international news this evening, UN warns of worsening humanitarian crisis in Sudan as famine takes hold. And in sports associations urge to follow set rules, says government. Join us for these and many more stories after this break. To present Camnet TV main news in detail, I'm Tapelo Joe Smarter. The Zambia Statistics Agency has recorded an increase in the country's overall inflation rate for February 2025, rising to 16.8 from 16.7 in January 2025. This is according to the agency's monthly statistical highlights, which include inflation trends, food inflation, and other key economic indicators. Acting Statistician General Sheila Mdenda attributes the rise in inflation to price movements in food items. She says the annual food inflation rate increased significantly from 19.2% in January to 20.6% in February 2025, driven by higher prices in key categories such as bread and cereals. Meanwhile, the annual non-food inflation registered a decline, dropping to 11.7% in February from 13.2% in January 2025 due to price movements in household appliances and non-food items. She further says that the monthly inflation rate for February 2025 increased to 2.4%, reflecting ongoing economic pressures affecting the cost of goods and services in the country.
The annual food inflation increased to 20.6% from 19.2% in January 2025, and this was on account of bread movement, on account of price movements in categories of bread and cereals, and these include breakfast mini meal, roller mini meal, maize grain, SAM, rice local, rice bun, macaroni, spaghetti, bread flour imported. Another food item which registered some price movements is the meat category, which is T-bone, beef sausage, offals, goat meat, chicken liver, chicken frozen. And another food group which registered some movements pushing the inflation rate in the food category is that of fish, and that is frozen fish, buka buka, fresh carpenter, dried bream, medium-sized open, dried carpenter mpulungu, dried carpenter siabonga, dried carpenter chisense, and lastly the food group of fruits, which is as registered there, the oranges, bananas, apples, watermelon, and avocados. We also registered a decrease in the annual non-food inflation for the month of February, reducing to 11.7% in February from 13.2% recorded in January 2025. And this was on account of price movements in household appliances such as refrigerator, the stove or cooker, and microwave oven.
Economist Yusufu Dodia has called for fundamental policy reforms to address the rising basic needs and nutrition basket (BNNB), warning that the escalating cost of living is making life increasingly difficult for most Zambians. Speaking to Camnet News, Mr. Dodia urged the government to implement strategic reforms aimed at stabilizing the economy and ensuring a sustainable reduction in the cost of living. He explained that the increases in electricity tariffs have directly impacted food prices as power is essential in the production and distribution of goods. He noted that the kwacha's depreciation against the US dollar has also had a direct impact on the cost of food and non-food items in the country. Mr. Dodia warned that food prices will continue to rise unless significant changes are made to economic policies.
There's been a recent announcement of the basic needs and nutritional basket, which is a very high figure for many Zambians. You find that we are looking at figures ranging from 10 to 11,000 kwacha per month for an average family of 2 parents and 4 children. And this makes life extremely difficult for most Zambians. So having looked at that, we have to look at what is it that is making food prices go up. And the basic thing is that everything is dependent on energy. So when electricity tariffs go up, food prices go up. When fuel prices go up, food prices go up. And we've been seeing those going on and on for quite some time. And then the other thing that also drives prices up is the kwacha to dollar value, the value of the kwacha. As the value of the kwacha deteriorates, it becomes more expensive to import inputs, even for the agriculture sector, like fertilizers, seed, and so forth. And this pushes up the cost of food.
Transparency International Zambia, TIZ, says it has high expectations for President Hakainde Hichilema's address on the progress made in the application of Zambia's national values and principles this Friday. TIZ Executive Director Maurice Nyambe says the head of state should provide specific direction towards key issues related to good governance and integrity, sustainability, and democracy, among others, all of which form part of the country's national values and principles. Mr. Nyambe says TIZ expects the president to unconditionally outline his plan to publicly declare his assets, liabilities, and interests before the 2026 elections. He says Mr. Hichilema should address one of the most pressing economic concerns of the country's rising fuel-related public debt, which has grown from $600 million in 2021 to $735 million by the end of 2024, despite the removal of fuel subsidies. The institution equally expects the address to give a categorical position on government's intentions on the constitutional reform process, including a clear roadmap and mechanisms for citizen participation.
Looking forward to what the president is going to say as he addresses the nation tomorrow on the progress that has been made, that we have made as a country in terms of application of our national values and principles as outlined in Article 8 of the Constitution. Of course, we have our own expectations in terms of what we would like the president to address in his speech, and one of the key ones really has to do with this whole question of the integrity in out-of-court settlements. We expect the president really to be unequivocal in addressing the concerns regarding the increasing use of out-of-court settlements at the state chambers. There is a growing perception that these settlements are being manipulated to benefit individuals that have an affiliation or are aligned to the ruling party. And so we expect the president to commit his government to, introducing measures that are going to ensure that legal processes are not compromised for political or personal gain. The other issue that is of importance to us is the full operationalization of the Access to Information Act. So while, of course, the Act has been enacted, its effectiveness, of course, depends on the finalization of the operational guidelines and rules. And so we expect the President really to provide a definitive timeline for this process, so that ultimately citizens, media, and civil society can fully utilize the law to promote transparency and accountability within our governance. One of the other things that we expect to hear from the President is really just him outlining the concrete efforts that are going to be taken to enhance the fight against corruption in Zambia.
Medical expert Dr. Teddy Mulenga says the trending blood tooth method amongst junkies has no capacity to single-handedly intoxicate a person as the blood quantities are very low. Dr. Mulenga explains that the Bluetooth method mainly spreads disease such as hepatitis B, syphilis, blood infections, and HIV, unlike the misconstrued perception of highness. He has since called on members of the public to desist from sharing needles and drugs orally or through injections. This follows concerns raised over the emerging trend among junkies known as Bluetooth, where they share needles and blood samples from one person to another while taking drugs.
Current trend, we are hearing that the junkies are sharing needles and also sharing blood samples from one person to the other as they are taking drugs is quite worrisome. The main reason is that it's not so much as that they get high from blood samples. That is not possible because the quantity is not enough. But the biggest danger is the transmission of hepatitis B, blood infections, syphilis, and HIV. That is the biggest danger. So the transmission of blood-borne infections is the most worrying aspect to us in the healthcare. Can we give as health workers is to desist from sharing needles, and of course desist from taking drugs, either orally or by injection, and by extension never share a needle that you have already used.
The Advocates for Democratic Governance Foundation has called on Republican President Hakainde Hichilema to address key governance concerns including electoral violence, vote buying, corruption, and the need for legal reforms as he delivers his parliamentary address on Friday. President Hichilema will on Friday, 28 February 2025, address Parliament on the progress made in upholding national values and principles. Organization Executive Director Gideon Musonda has underscored the importance of strengthening democracy, good governance, and human dignity, particularly as Zambia approaches the 2026 general elections.
Advocates for Democratic Governance Foundation, ADEG, keenly awaits President Hakainde Hichilema's address to Parliament scheduled for 28th February 2025, during which he is expected to report on the progress made in upholding the national values and principles as enshrined in Articles 8 and 9 of the Zambian Constitution. As Zambia moves closer to 2026 general elections, ADEG emphasizes the urgent need to uphold and strengthen values relating to democracy, good governance, and human dignity. While the government has made some commitments in this regard, several critical issues continue to undermine the democratic process and governance in the country. Here are our 4 key areas of concern. Number 1, electoral violence and vote buying. Recent by-elections have been marred by violence, intimidation, and unethical practices such as vote buying. These acts erodes the integrity of the electoral process and threaten Zambia's democratic principles. ADEG expects the president to make clear pronouncements on the government's practical actions to curb electoral violence and ensure the elections remain free, fair, and credible.
Kanyama's Garden Park Ward 10 Councillor Gerald Samboko has announced an emergency water distribution initiative to assist 80,000 residents affected by severe flooding in the area. Speaking during an emergency constituency development fund CDF committee meeting, he emphasized the urgent need to restore normal water supply in the area. Mr. Samboko says as part of the initiative, 7 health posts across the constituency have been designated as water bowser placement centers to ensure equitable distribution. He adds that the committee also addressed the ongoing electricity blackout, which has persisted for 7 days, significantly impacting the community. Meanwhile, Chinika Ward 11 Councillor Masauso Ngoma and Makeni Villa Councillor Fred Mumba have supported calls to remove wall fences obstructing water flow. The exercise is said to commence immediately and will run for 14 days.
An emergency CDF committee meeting to look into the disaster that is in Kanyama over floods. And so what we have resolved is that we need to make sure that we drain the water, ensuring that all these households that are submerged in water are freed from the floods. And this will also help us to ask ZESCO immediately to restore power, because they've cut off power because of the houses that are submerged in water. And not only that, we'll make sure that we continue supplying clean drinking water to our people. We know that because of the power cut, people are in desperate need of clean drinking water, and we'll make sure that we supply clean drinking water to all those that need water, especially those who have tanks already, 10,000 liters of tanks, and we'll also install more tanks to ensure that everyone is catered for. But I want to assure you that in no time we'll make sure that the power is restored so that we get back to normal life.
The Zambia National Building Society, ZNBS, has urged private sector players, financial institutions and development agencies to support its efforts in delivering affordable housing to Zambians. Speaking at the launch of the Timange housing loan product, a key initiative reflecting ZNBS's commitment to expanding home ownership, board chairperson Geoffrey Samukunga emphasized the importance of empowering communities and contributing to Zambia's national vision of an inclusive and prosperous society. Meanwhile, Acting Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Development, Dr. Richard Banda, described the initiative as timely given the country's current housing deficit of 1.5 million units. And Africa Area Vice President of Habitat for Humanity, Rudo Kayombo, highlighted the global housing crisis, noting that 2.8 billion people worldwide live in inadequate housing. She stressed that initiatives like Timange are crucial in addressing the growing need for affordable and sustainable housing solutions. Details in this report.
Zambia National Building Society, ZNBS, has today, Thursday, February 27th, 2025, launched the Timange Housing Loan Product, an initiative designed to provide affordable housing solutions for Zambians. Speaking at the event, ZNBS Board Chairperson Geoffrey Samukunga called on private sector players, financial institutions and development agencies to support this initiative, emphasizing that it is not just a financial solution but a direct response to the call for inclusive growth and sustainable housing development in the country.
This product is a reflection of the strategic vision that drives our organization to remain at the forefront of innovation in housing, finance, and contribute meaningfully to Zambia's economic and social development. Guest of honor, at ZNBS, our mission goes beyond financial products. We aim to align our efforts with the government's developmental agenda, particularly as outlined in the Zambia National Housing Policy and the 8th National Development Plan. Today, we take one step forward, bridging the housing deficit in Zambia, which stands at an estimated 1.5 million units.
Meanwhile, Acting Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development, Dr. Richard Banda, who was also the guest of honor, noted that the initiative will help improve the livelihoods of citizens, particularly those in low-income employment.
Even in such an initiative, it shows that Zambia National Building Society is not only looking at those who can afford slightly expensive housing mortgages, but also looking at those that are at the lower end of the income bracket and still trying to address their challenges. So for that, Zambia National Building Society, the management and board, you are greatly commended from the government. With that said, I urge other financial institutions to follow this example by developing solutions that align with the government's policies and visions for Zambia's future.
And Habitat for Humanity Africa, a key cooperating partner of ZNBS, highlighted the global housing crisis, pointing out that 2.8 billion people worldwide live in improper housing facilities. Organization's Vice President, Rudo Kayombo, described the launch as timely as it will help provide better housing solutions for those in need.
Many years I've worked in development, and just before I agreed to be considered for my role with Habitat for Humanity, I visited a community in Sierra Leone. I was then working with BRAC, which you know for microfinance. And we met a group of women who had been clients for over 13 years. And one of them told us her story. With the loans that she had received, she had sent her children to school and she had built a house. She pointed to the house. We later on went to that house to use a toilet because we were in that community. Friends, the issues we are dealing with will create dignity for families.
Chanda Mwangu for Camnet News in Lusaka.
The media network on children's rights and development has called on government to increase investment, rehabilitation facilities and physical social counseling support services in the country. Association Executive Director Henry Kabwe says it is important for government and private facilities to offer rehabilitation services, enabling children effectively contribute to the nation's development. He says a number of children that abuse drugs and other substances normally end up having mental defect that needs rehabilitation. He notes that the past efforts to remove children from the streets have been unsuccessful due to inadequate investment in physical social counseling, hence the need for a multifaceted approach involving law enforcers and policymakers to ensure no child is found on the streets, while also providing the necessary support and services to help them rebuild their lives.
Problem of children living on the streets keeps affecting our country, and measures have to be put in place to ensure that we reduce those numbers, because most of them are the ones that are becoming criminals. They're becoming social misfits that are affecting the well-being of our nation. So we need to ensure that we keep this situation while they are children, and we need a lot of political will to ensure that we support them off the street in order for them to go back to school We need psychosocial support because most of these children have been, taking drugs and other intoxicating products that have affected their mental well-being. So there's need to ensure that, engage government facilities, including, private facilities that may want to offer corporate social responsibility services in order to rehabilitate these children so that they can, get back into communities and contribute to the development of our nation. It is better to ensure that we have children that become adults that can contribute to our revenue, that can contribute to our development, than have children that will make us build more correctional facilities, that will make us build more police stations, that will make us employ more law enforcers because of the problems that they may cause in future. So the
Christian Churches of Zambia, CCZ, has called on MPs and political parties to embrace young people in key duties beyond violence. Speaking in an interview, CCZ Secretary General Father Emmanuel Chukoya says political parties in the country do not entrust young people with serious positions but merely use them as violent cadres and to mobilize havoc. Father Chukoya states that given the opportunity, young people have the capacity to take up critical leadership functions and drive the development agenda of the country. He said young people should not succumb to being used as tools of violence, but instead politicians should mentor them to reproduce and inspire them to take up leadership key roles.
When it comes to the politics in Africa, in Zambia, usually you see the young people being mass mobilized, usually to insult, usually to sing, and sing and be tools of violence. And so how best do political parties engage the young people? They must be given space. They must be nominated to contest, for political party positions and even for the actual general elections in the country. We should, the problem that we have is maybe we have too many aged people in parliament. And they're spending most of the time, they just wake up and they are shouting here, here, here. They don't even know what has been discussed. Because, the Bible says in Joel chapter 2 that the young men will dream dreams. And the young men will see visions, but the old men will dream dreams. No matter what you do, no matter how powerful you are, no matter how great you are, when you reach a certain age, your energy levels are low. And there must be a succession plan. So political parties must have deliberate mentorship programs. So if you have a president, why not have some people that will be mentored with that potential in them being developed, knowing that this is a potential presidential material. You have members of parliament, you have a chairperson of young people who is in the 50s. For heaven's sake, please, there are enough young people who should be in charge of their own departments. Why should a youth chairperson be in the 50s when you have enough young people to run? So let them be allowed to to occupy office, but also they need the skills that are required to build their skills. For example,
we now go to Western Province, where Mongu Municipal Council Director of Engineering Services, Engineer John Siangandu, has warned contractors in Mongu against delivery of shoddy works on any given project in the district. Engineer Siangandu said this when inspecting two ongoing construction works on the two markets being constructed in Mongu's Green and Kapulanga markets using the 2024 Constituency Development Fund, CDF. He disclosed that Green Market will cost more than 1 million kwacha, while the Kapulanga Market first phase will cost 1,600,000 kwacha. Meanwhile, the contractor working on the two markets has assured of quality works and timely completion of the two projects. Musiewo Kabila now reports.
Responding to traders trading at Kaplanga and Green Market on a recent media report that traders are trading in an open space, Mungu Municipal Council has embarked on the construction of the two modern markets, which will address their main challenges they encountered during the rain and summer season. Speaking after monitoring the two projects, Mungu Municipal Council Director of Engineering Services, Engineer John Siangando, has assured that quality works on the project will be completed on time. He has warned some contractors who will not deliver according to their contract terms and conditions that their contracts will be terminated.
Mungu Central Constituency, under the Constituency Development Fund, we are constructing two market shelters. That's at Green Market and here at Kaplanga Market, which is also called the Lioero Market. We are glad to inform that the works have commenced, and we are hoping the structures will be done on time so that the people that have been displaced are back on site. What we are checking for is quality, value for money, and the timely delivery of these projects. All these projects have been awarded to local contractors, local as in Mungu contractors. So we are also building capacity in the contractors. We are on site 24/7 to ensure that quality, specifications, and also timely delivery are attained.
Others who spoke are the area councillor Tapalo and Tyson Mujuro, Fearless Construction Company Supervisor.
My technical tactics to follow your drawing and meet the standard of this project. We are trying by all means to meet target. Our target is by 60% of the given time. We have to hand over these projects.
Today we are talking that we have these projects, so we should do care. We should care for these projects. We should not allow vandalism to take place.
Meanwhile, some marketeers from the two markets being constructed have expressed gratitude toward the construction, stating that they used to encounter challenges on where to trade from.
Tata vanarufumana norusina ndema muluti makuyama barekisa nibakono koloba pula binofumana kuti
utavire kakubona mugendengeo kakuli kintu eza kuli lukatalize na kweterere mune rufumana mu musikalo namo ne runeliwa bagensa kuli ne rwinzi mu mashasha ne kusina she utakana kweo boli tumela faka patabwe runani mwana ko yachwale alubona kuli bisaliza eza hala basali baya ha niro abanita bolu na bakaplanga market.
Musiewo Kabila, Camnet News in Mungu District, Western Province.
From Mungu back to Lusaka in energy news, where the Energy Regulation Board, ERB, has approved 89 license applications and 8 construction permits within the petroleum and renewable energy subsectors. ERB Public Relations Manager Namukolo Kasumpa says the licenses represent a combined investment of 10.9 billion kwacha, whilst the construction permits granted within the renewable energy subsector account for $189 million. Kasumpa says the power generation projects are vital in supporting the policy objective of diversifying Zambia's energy mix and addressing current energy challenges. She says the approved licenses cover key energy sector activities, including the retail of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, the supply and installation of solar energy equipment, and the transportation, importation, and retail of petroleum products. Kasumpa adds that the board remains committed to promoting investment growth in the energy sector and is dedicated to creating a transparent regulatory environment that promotes sustainable energy alternatives, attracts investment, and ensures adherence to licensing guidelines in the country. The Zambia Police Service, through the Lusaka Division Scorpion team, has arrested a suspected notorious criminal, Branchota, also known as Kanono, age 25, of Chiwolia compound. Police Public Relations Officer Ray Hamonga says Chota was apprehended on February 26, 2025 at approximately 19 hours following a series of thefts targeting side mirrors from moving vehicles at Curfew roundabout, particularly between the flyover bridge and downtown mall. He adds that the suspect is currently in lawful custody and investigations are ongoing, and authorities expect him to assist in identifying locations where the stolen items were sold. Mr. Hamonga further states that motorists who have fallen victim to such thefts are urged to report to Lusaka Central Police Station to lodge formal complaints and assist in building a strong case for prosecution.
The Zambia Police Service, through the Lusaka Division Scorpion team, has apprehended a notorious criminal identified as Brian Chota, alias Kanono, age 25, of unknown house number in Chiwole compound. The suspect was apprehended yesterday, the 26th of February 2025, around 19 hours after a series of thefts targeting side mirrors from moving motor vehicles at Curfew roundabout, specifically between Flyover Bridge and downtown. The suspect is currently in lawful custody and police investigations are ongoing. He is expected to lead officers to locations where he has been selling the stolen items. We are appealing to motorists who have fallen victim to this criminal act to come forward and lodge formal complaints at Lusaka Central Police Station to help us build a strong case for prosecution. The Zambia Police Service remains committed to ensuring the safety of all motorists and bringing perpetrators of such crimes to justice.
And that particular story takes us to our first set of commercials, but do join us for international and sports news. When we come back, do stay tuned.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms. Camnet TV, not just another channel. Every Monday to Thursday afternoon, join us for the Lunchtime Cafe. We get to bring to you emerging stories making the headlines, midday news, and we remind you of what political leaders and governance actors said back in the days. In Forgotten Stories, we emphasize to you the importance of eating healthy foods and leading healthy lifestyles on the Nutrition Corner. Get the latest updates in sports and critical interviews. Because we value your contribution to national matters, we accord you an opportunity to share your perspectives during the viewers' reactions. The Camnet TV Lunchtime Cafe is an all-inclusive buffet. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Enjoy the benefits of an instant loan with us ranging from 1,000 kwacha to 750,000 kwacha paid express once collateral is viewed, valued and verified. Call us on 0763 595 359 or 0779 432 993. Classified Financial Express, here as your financial friend.
Potatoes, the unsung heroes of flavor. From crispy chips to creamy mash, potatoes are the versatile superstars of your kitchen. Grown with love by our dedicated workforce drawn from around the community of Palavana. Savenda Farm's commitment is to see to it that we have potatoes that are grown right, healthy, big and tasty. For that quick fix or big celebration or that meal that brings family together, top chefs rely on the Savenda potato to create culinary masterpieces. And for others, it's that icebreaker to a delightful conversation. So, embrace the magic of Savenda potatoes. They're not just a side dish, they're the heart and soul of your kitchen. Savenda, save nations, develop Africa.
Thank you so much for still joining us and welcome to international news. The United Nations has warned that the already catastrophic situation in Sudan has deteriorated further in recent weeks, with famine now a reality in several parts of the country. In a briefing to the UN Security Council on Wednesday, the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs reported that nearly 2 years of conflict between the Sudanese army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have inflicted immense suffering, turning parts of the country into a hellscape. Director of Operations and Advocacy, Edim Wosorunu, provided alarming statistics stating that more than 12 million people have been displaced, including 3.4 million who have fled across Sudan's borders. Additionally, over half the population, 24.6 million people, are experiencing acute hunger. The crisis has led to a near total collapse of health services, millions of traumatized children being cut off from formal education, and widespread sexual violence. Here's a roundup of international news.
The United Nations Humanitarian Office has warned of worsening famine conditions in Sudan amid an uptick in fighting in North Darfur region. It says nearly 2 years of conflict between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces has inflicted immense suffering and turned parts of the country into a hellscape.
More than 12 million people displaced, including 3.4 million people who have fled across Sudan's borders. More than half of the country, 24.6 million people, experiencing acute hunger. A collapse of health services, millions of traumatized children cut off from formal education, relentless patterns of sexual violence. And in several parts of the country, the already catastrophic situation of civilians has also actually worsened since our last briefing to this council less than 1 month ago.
Despite widespread starvation and huge humanitarian needs, aid providers have suspended operations at Sudan's largest displacement camp, Zamzam, home to around 500,000 people because of intense fighting.
Monday, Médecins Sans Frontières, the main provider of health and nutrition services in Zamzam, announced that it has been forced to halt its operations in the camp due to the deteriorating security situation. The United Nations World Food Programme has also just confirmed suspension of voucher-based food assistance in the camp due to insecurity and the destruction of the market.
WORSENING urged the Security Council to take immediate action to ensure all actors abide by international humanitarian law and protect civilians in the camp and beyond. In the first ruling of its kind, Mexico's Supreme Court has ordered a zoo in the capital to improve the health of one of its residents, an African elephant by the name of Ellie. Animal rights activists say she's suffering from depression, has lost weight and has been repeatedly ill since the 2016 death of Maggie, another pachyderm that shared her habitat.
Her
zoochosis, her swaying, her sadness. She was constantly leaning on trees, doors, bars, wherever she was, as if she could not stand much standing up, as I can't do it now. So she had to lean. I repeat, although I'm not a scientist and I do not have the knowledge, she was desolate, sad, apathetic. I think she felt abandoned. And I said, I'm going to be that voice. Many activists say animals have no voice. I differ with that. Yes, they do, but we don't want to listen to them. Valencia conceded that there had been an improvement in Ellie's living conditions, but says this was only after public pressure. Following the ruling, the zoo now has to ensure a constant improvement in Ellie's health and physical condition. The elephant was rescued from a circus 13 years ago. Celebrations in Khan Yunis on Thursday morning as buses carrying hundreds of freed Palestinian prisoners arrived in the Gaza Strip city. They were welcomed by family and friends as one man stepped off the bus, threw down his Israeli prison service T-shirt and stamped on it. Among the detainees were hundreds arrested in the enclave on suspicion of militancy following the October 2023 attack on southern Israel and held for months without charge. Their release came after Hamas earlier handed over the bodies of 4 Israeli hostages to the Red Cross. Israel had delayed releasing the over 600 prisoners since Saturday in protest against what it described as the cruel treatment of hostages during their handover by the militant group. Hamas called the delay a serious violation of the ceasefire and said talks on a second phase were not possible until they were freed. The latest handovers complete both sides' obligations under the first phase of the fragile truce, which ends this week. The fate of the next phase remains unclear.
And finally, in sports news this evening, Minister of Youth, Sports and Arts Elvis Nkandu says it is unfortunate that a physical fight broke out at Football Association of Zambia FAZ this morning. Responding to a question raised in Parliament over the risk of a potential FIFA ban on football in Zambia following the continued wrangles at FAZ, Mr. Nkandu says government has engaged all sports federation presidents and secretary generals over their adherence to each association's constitution. The minister says each association has a set constitution, therefore FAZ should follow theirs to the latter. He adds that the ministry has engaged the National Sports Council to help resolve current election wrangles at the Football Association of Zambia, FAZ.
All the presidents and secretary generals of all the 57 associations that we do have. And maybe the House should also know that we do not only manage FAZ as the National Sports Council of Zambia. We have 57 associations and federations. And this issue is not unique. It happens even to other federations. But because maybe people do follow only football, since football is a religion in this country, a lot of issues are highlighted. It happens in ZA, it happens in boxing, it happens everywhere. But the National Sports Council of Zambia always manages all these issues. But answering the question, we called, as a mitigating factor, we called first all presidents, we called all secretary generals, where we were teaching them good governance. And I think that was important. We had a forum that talked about good governance. And I made it very clear in my speech that people should never defile their own constitutions. They should never alter their constitutions to favor their incumbents, because that is happening. But I know that this is not only happening in the football circles. It is even happening even in political parties, where people are altering constitutions to favor their incumbents, to favor themselves, so that they continue managing the affairs of such groupings. But I think it is important for people to understand that when your time has come, it has come. Now, we have also directed the National Sports Council of Zambia, looking at the situation that has befallen us now, to look into this issue and also call these federations and see how best we can mitigate these issues so that it does not continue.
And that sporting item brings us to the end of this edition of Main News on Camnet TV. But before we go, a recap of stories making headlines. Inflation rises to 16.8% in February. Expert calls for policy reforms to address cost of living. TIZ urges HH to provide roadmap on national matters in Parliament. In international news, UN warns of worsening humanitarian crisis in Sudan as famine takes hold. And in sports associations urge to follow set rules, says government. We now look at the Camnet verse for the day, coming from the book of Revelation chapter 4 and verse 11. It reads, "Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created." That ends the reading, and that ends the main news on Camnet TV. But dear viewer, like always, remember that Camnet TV is not just another channel. Now, on behalf of the entire production team, I'm Tapelo Joe Smarter. Good evening and God bless.